The evening I walked into the kitchen of our Lakeside Manor and saw the thick manila envelope sitting on the counter, I felt the floor shift beneath everything I had built. It was not the kind of envelope that brings good news. The return address belonged to Patrick Doyle, a corporate attorney Justin had mentioned only once in passing months earlier. I stood there in my work clothes, still carrying the scent of the city from my meeting in Pittsburgh, and I knew the papers inside were about to rewrite the rules of my life. My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I am 35 years old. If you have ever watched the person you trusted most try to take control of the life you created with nothing but legal language and quiet certainty, you understand the particular stillness that follows. I would love to hear how you responded when the ground moved under your own feet. Share your story in the comments below. I set my bag down and opened the envelope with steady hands. The first page was a petition claiming that the manor and the business I had grown from a single design studio into a respected event and interiors firm needed professional oversight because of my recent patterns of decision-making. Justin's signature was already there. A second document referenced an old power of attorney form I had signed early in our marriage, when I barely remembered. Now twisted to suggest I had agreed to let him manage major assets if he ever deemed me overwhelmed. The language was polite, almost gentle, but the intent was unmistakable. Justin appeared in the doorway to the great room that overlooked the water. He did not ask how my meeting had gone. He simply said, "We need to talk about this before it goes any further." I kept my voice even. Talk about what exactly? He stepped closer and tapped the papers. About protecting what we have. Patrick says the manor is exposed if anything happens to you. The business too. You have been stretched thin, Lauren. Everyone sees it. Courtney has been worried for months. The mention of my best friend's name landed like a small stone in still water. I looked at him directly. Courtney helped you prepare these. He did not flinch. She reviewed the language. She knows how much this place means to both of us. She wants what is best for you, same as I do. I read the next paragraph. It referenced family concerns about my stress levels and alluded to an old conversation with my parents that I had never authorized anyone to share. My mother and father had visited the manor only a handful of times. The idea that they had supplied private details to my husband or my best friend made the air in the room feel thinner. You went to my parents, I said. Justin's expression hardened just enough for me to notice. They are concerned too. They said you have always taken on too much, that you refuse help, even when it is offered. This is not an attack, Lauren. It is a safeguard. Sign the updated documents, and we can move forward without court involvement. I did not raise my voice. I simply asked, what happens if I do not sign? He let out a short breath, the kind that used to mean he was losing patience. Then Patrick will have to file the petition. It becomes public record. People in Pittsburgh will talk. You know how fast that happens in our circles. Courtney has already heard whispers. She is trying to protect your reputation by handling this privately. The threat of public gossip was new. I had spent years building quiet relationships with clients and vendors across the city. The idea that my best friend was now carrying stories about my supposed instability made something inside me go very still and very cold. I closed the folder. I will need time to review everything with my own counsel. Justin's jaw tightened. You are making this harder than it has to be. I am trying to keep this between us, between family. I met his eyes without blinking. Then why is my best friend involved in legal paperwork about my home and my business? He looked away first, because she cares, because she sees what I see. I picked up the envelope and walked past him toward the hallway that led to my office. I will let you know when I have finished reading. He did not follow me. I heard him open the refrigerator, the sound of a bottle cap twisting off. The ordinary noise felt louder than it should have. In my office, I spread the papers across the desk and began making notes in the margin with a red pen. Every clause that referenced joint decision-making or spousal oversight, I marked. The reference to the old power of attorney form was dated 3 months after our wedding. I remembered signing something that day, but it had been presented as a simple document for emergencies while we traveled. Now, it was being used to suggest I had willingly handed over control of the manor I had purchased and renovated with money I earned before we met. I opened my laptop and pulled up the original trust documents for the property. The Lakeside Manor sat on a private stretch of water outside Pittsburgh, a place I had chosen and restored room by room while building my client list one careful project at a time. The title was held in a trust I controlled. Justin's name had never been added. That fact alone should have ended the conversation. Yet here were legal papers claiming otherwise. My phone vibrated. A text from Courtney appeared on the screen. "Did Justin show you the papers I told him to be gentle? We are all just trying to help." I did not answer. Instead, I opened a new document and began typing a timeline of every conversation I could remember about the manor and the business over the past year. I added dates when Justin had asked for access to accounts, when Courtney had offered to help with paperwork, when my mother had called with vague questions about whether I was managing everything okay. The pattern was small and consistent, like water finding a crack. I saved the file, encrypted it, and sent a copy to my personal cloud storage. Then I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet. Outside the window, the lake reflected the last light of the day. I had chosen this house because it felt like the first place that belonged entirely to me. Now someone was trying to write a different ending onto its walls with legal ink. I stood and walked back through the house. Justin was still in the great room phone in hand, speaking in a low voice. I paused at the edge of the hallway, far enough that he would not see me, but close enough to catch fragments. "She is not going to sign tonight. Patrick said the petition is ready if we need it. Courtney already spoke to a couple of people who can corroborate the stress issues." He laughed once, a short sound without warmth. "No, she does not suspect anything yet. She is still in that calm mode she gets when she thinks she can outthink everyone." I turned and walked back to my office without making a sound. I sat at the desk again and opened a fresh page in my notebook. At the top, I wrote 3 words in block letters: "Record everything." The house was quiet except for the distant sound of the water against the shore. I had built this place with my own hands and my own money. I had invited my husband into it. I had called my best friend family. Now both of them were using the same word, help, to describe the papers on my counter. I did not cry. I did not raise my voice. I simply began the list of every person I would need to speak with tomorrow, starting with the one name that had not yet appeared in any of Justin's documents. Jasmine Wells, the colleague who had helped me structure the business trust years earlier, and who had never once asked for a signature on anything that did not belong to her. The first line on my list read, "Call Jasmine in the morning. Ask what she knows about Patrick Doyle." I underlined it twice. Then I closed the notebook and turned off the desk lamp. The darkness in the room felt cleaner than the conversation still happening in the great room. I stayed seated for a long time, listening to the lake and to the sound of my own breathing, steady and unhurried. Whatever came next, I would meet it with the same steadiness. I had learned long ago that the people who move quietly with papers are often the ones who expect you to panic. I had no intention of giving them what they expected. The next morning, I woke before the alarm and sat at the edge of the bed, listening to the lake. Justin had already left for an early meeting in the city. The envelope from Patrick Doyle still lay on the counter where I had left it. I made coffee, carried it into my office, and closed the door. Then I picked up the phone and called the one person who had never asked me to sign anything that did not belong to her. Jasmine Wells answered on the second ring. Her voice was the same steady tone she used when we reviewed client contracts. "Lauren, I was hoping you would call. I kept my words measured. Justin had Patrick Doyle draw up papers about the manor and the business. He says you and Courtney helped review them. There was a short silence on her end. I did not review anything. Courtney asked me last week if I would look at some language about asset protection. I told her I do not give opinions on documents that do not come through proper channels. Then I started paying closer attention. I waited. Jasmine did not fill silence with small talk. 3 days ago, I was in the building downtown for another meeting, she continued. The conference room next to mine had the door propped open. I heard Justin's voice on speakerphone with Patrick Doyle and someone else. I recognized Courtney's laugh. They were discussing timing for a petition and how to frame your recent stress using old family stories. Justin said the parents had already given statements about an episode from years ago that they could characterize as instability. Courtney said she had texts from you that could be presented as evidence of erratic behavior if needed. My hand stayed steady around the coffee mug. What episode? Something about a family argument after your father's company had issues. Justin described it as you falling apart publicly. Courtney agreed it showed a pattern. I closed my eyes for 1 second, then opened them. The old story was not public. It had been a private disagreement at a family dinner when I was 28. My father had made a decision that cost people money. I had spoken up. My mother had cried and called it disloyal. No one outside the house had ever been told the details. Now those details were being reshaped into legal ammunition. Jasmine's voice stayed even. I recorded the rest of the call on my phone, not because I planned to, because I realized they were building something against you, and I needed proof before I decided what to do. I sent the file to a secure folder this morning. The link is in your email. The sender name is blank on purpose. I did not want Courtney or Justin to trace it back to me yet. I opened the email on my laptop. The file was labeled only with a date. I clicked play. Justin's voice came through, first relaxed in the way he sounded when he believed no one important was listening. Once the petition is filed, the court will appoint me temporary control over the major assets. That gives us leverage. She will have to negotiate from a weaker position. Patrick Doyle answered professional and detached. The old power of attorney gives us a strong starting point. If we can show a pattern of decisions that put the property at risk, the judge is more likely to grant the temporary order. Courtney's voice followed lighter, almost cheerful. Her mother already sent me the old emails about that dinner with her father. We can frame it as her having a history of overreacting when she feels challenged. It makes the stress claim believable. Justin laughed once. She still thinks this is about protecting the house. She has no idea how much of this was already in motion before the papers were printed. I stopped the recording. My breathing remained steady. The pieces fit together now with cold clarity. The legal papers were never about safety. They were about control. My best friend had supplied private family details. My husband had used them. An attorney I had never met was ready to file a public petition that would drag my name through Pittsburgh's social and business circles. Jasmine spoke again. I am not sending this to hurt you. I am sending it because I have watched you build every piece of that business and that house without asking anyone to carry the weight for you. If you want me to forward the file to your own attorney, I will. If you want to handle it another way, I will stay out of it. But you should know the petition is scheduled to be filed by the end of the week unless you sign first. I thanked her. My voice did not shake. I told her I would review the file and decide on next steps. Then I ended the call. I listened to the recording twice more, noting timestamps and exact phrases. Every sentence confirmed what I had already begun to suspect. The betrayal was not impulsive. It had been planned in pieces with my best friend acting as both witness and supplier of ammunition. My phone lit up with a text from Courtney. Are you okay? Justin said you seemed upset last night. I can come over if you want to talk. We can figure this out together like we always have." I did not reply. Instead, I forwarded the audio file to my personal attorney with a short note asking for an emergency review. Then I opened the trust documents for the manor again and highlighted every clause that kept Justin's name off the title. The protection I had built years earlier was still there. They simply had not expected me to look. By mid-morning, Justin returned. He found me in the kitchen with the legal papers spread out in front of me. He set his briefcase on the island and waited. "I spoke with Jasmine this morning," I said. His expression did not change, but his shoulders tightened. "About what?" "About the conversation you had with Patrick Doyle and Courtney 3 days ago. The one where you discussed using old family emails to support a claim of instability." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You are listening to private conversations now. I am listening to the people who are trying to take my home and my business." I answered. Courtney supplied the emails. "You approved the framing. Patrick is ready to file." "That is not protection. That is a coordinated move." Justin stepped closer. His voice dropped. "You have always been difficult when someone tries to help you. Your parents warned me about that years ago. They said you would rather burn everything down than admit you need support. Courtney sees it too. She has watched you push people away for a decade. We are trying to keep you from doing the same thing to the assets you built." I met his gaze without looking away. "The assets I built, not we. I bought this land before we married. I renovated every room. I grew the client list one project at a time. You added your name to the household accounts, that is all." He leaned forward, hands flat on the counter. "If you force this into court, people will talk. Clients will hear stories. Courtney has already had questions from 2 mutual friends. Once the petition is public, the damage is permanent. Sign the documents today and we keep everything private. You keep your reputation. I keep control of the decisions that matter." I gathered the papers into a single stack. "I will not sign anything that hands you temporary control of what is mine. If you file the petition, I will respond with the recording and the trust documents. The choice is yours." Justin's face flushed. "You are willing to destroy our marriage and your standing in this city over paperwork." "I am willing to protect what I built," I said. "You and Courtney made the decision to involve my parents' old stories and my best friend's private access. That choice already changed what this marriage is." He straightened. For a moment, I thought he might reach for the papers again. Instead, he picked up his briefcase. "Courtney is coming over this afternoon. She wants to talk to you herself. Maybe you will listen to her." He walked out without waiting for an answer. The front door closed. I remained at the counter, the stack of documents under my hand. The lake outside the windows was calm, the same view I had chosen when I signed the purchase papers alone. I sent one more message, this time to Courtney. "If you are coming over, come alone. We will talk." Then I walked back to my office, closed the door, and began preparing the response I would file if the petition ever reached a judge. Every note I made was dated, every reference to the recording time-stamped. I worked without hurry. The people who had moved against me had expected panic or surrender. They would receive neither. By early afternoon, a text arrived from a longtime client in Pittsburgh. She wrote that she had heard I was going through something difficult and wanted to check if our upcoming project was still on track. She did not mention names, but the concern in her wording was new. Courtney's reach had already extended beyond the house. I answered the client with calm reassurance and confirmed the timeline. Then I set the phone down and waited for the sound of Courtney's car on the gravel drive. The afternoon light moved across the water. I stayed seated at my desk, the recording file open on the screen, the trust documents beside it. Whatever conversation was about to happen in the great room, I would meet it with the same steadiness I had used since the envelope first appeared on the counter. I had built this life one careful choice at a time. I was not finished choosing. The sound of tires on the gravel reached the office before I stood. I closed the laptop, left the recording file open on the screen, and walked through the house to the front door. Courtney stepped out of her car, carrying a small bouquet of flowers, the same kind she used to bring when we met for lunch in Pittsburgh. She smiled the way she always had, warm and familiar, as if nothing had changed. I did not take the flowers. Come inside. We sat in the great room that overlooked the water. She set the bouquet on the coffee table and folded her hands in her lap. Justin told me you spoke with Jasmine. I wish you had come to me first. I kept my voice level. You supplied private emails from my parents. You sat in on a call with Patrick Doyle and my husband while they planned how to use an old family argument to claim I was unstable. That is not the kind of conversation I bring to lunch. Courtney's smile faded. We were trying to protect you. You have been working nonstop for years. The stress shows. Your mother said the same thing after that dinner with your father. You raised your voice. You walked out. They worried it could happen again when big decisions are on the table. I reached for my phone and played the section of the recording where she had laughed and offered the emails. Her own voice filled the room, light and certain. When it ended, the only sound was the water against the shore. She looked at the phone as if it had betrayed her. That was taken out of context. There is no context that makes supplying private family details to my husband's attorney acceptable, I said. You chose a side. You chose his. Justin's car pulled into the drive a few minutes later. He came in without knocking and stopped when he saw the phone still in my hand. His eyes moved from me to Courtney and back. You played it for her, he said. I played it for both of you, I answered. The petition is not about protection. It is about control. You plan to use an argument that happened 7 years ago, one my parents have never discussed outside this family, to argue in court that I cannot manage my own assets. That plan ends today. Justin stepped closer. His voice sharpened. If you fight this, the stories will come out anyway. People in the city already wonder why you handle everything alone. Once the filing hits, clients will ask questions. Courtney has already fielded calls. You will lose more than the house. I met his gaze without blinking. I have already lost the marriage. The house and the business were never yours to claim. The trust documents prove it. The recording proves the intent. If you file, my attorney will attach both. The only thing that becomes public is the record of what you and my best friend tried to do. Courtney stood. Her face had gone pale. Lauren, please, we can still fix this. Sign the papers and we move forward quietly. No one has to know how far this went. I stood as well. You already made sure people know. The client who texted me this morning heard something. She did not say from whom, but she asked if I was going through something difficult. That is your reach. You do not get to call it protection after you created the problem. Justin's hands curled into fists at his sides. You are choosing a fight over a signature. You are willing to lose everything we built together because you cannot stand anyone else having a say. What we built ended the moment you sat in a room with Patrick Doyle and my best friend and decided my past could be used against me, I said. I am not signing. I have already instructed my attorney to prepare a response. If the petition is filed, it will be met with the trust documents, the recording, and a request for sanctions. That is my answer. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out. The door closed harder than necessary. Courtney remained standing by the coffee table, the flowers still untouched between us. You are really going to cut me off over this, she said quietly. I am cutting off the version of you that helped my husband build a case against me with my own family's old arguments, I answered. That version does not get access to my life anymore. She picked up the flowers and left without another word. I watched her car disappear down the drive. The gravel settled. The house felt larger and quieter at the same time. Later that evening, my father called. Edward's voice was tired when I answered. Your mother and I heard about the papers. Justin said you refused to sign. He thinks you are being stubborn. I told him what the recording had contained. I told him the old dinner argument was being reshaped into evidence of instability. There was a long silence. We never meant for that story to leave the family, he said finally. Your mother was upset that night. She told Justin about it years later when he asked why you and I sometimes go months without talking. We did not know he would use it this way. We thought he was worried about you. The confession sat between us, plain and late. I did not raise my voice. You gave private details to my husband without asking me. That choice helped create the documents on my counter. I cannot undo what you said, but I will not let it be used to take what I built. My father cleared his throat. We will not give any more statements. If lawyers call, we will say the story was private and we were wrong to share it. I thanked him for the honesty he had finally offered. Then I ended the call. The unresolved tension remained. It would not disappear with one conversation. I had learned to live with that. Over the next week, the petition never reached a judge. Patrick Doyle withdrew the filing after my attorney sent the recording and the trust documents. Justin moved his things out of the Lakeside Manor on a Tuesday, while I was at a client meeting in Pittsburgh. He left a note on the counter that said, "Only, this is not what I wanted." I threw the note away without answering. Courtney stopped texting. Mutual friends who had heard versions of the story began to choose sides or step back. 2 long-term clients delayed projects, citing uncertainty. The business did not collapse, but the circle around it grew smaller. I accepted the loss. Some alliances had been built on convenience rather than loyalty. Their absence left space I no longer had to guard. Jasmine came to the manor one afternoon with a bottle of wine and no questions. We sat on the deck, overlooking the water, and talked about work, about the new projects I was taking on, about nothing that required defense. When she left, she said, "The trust still holds. You still hold." I believed her. In the weeks that followed, I changed the locks and updated the security codes. I blocked Justin's number and Courtney's. I sent a short, clear message to my parents that future conversations would happen only if they respected the boundary I had drawn around my private history. They did not argue. The distance that had always existed simply became official. The manor remained mine. The business remained mine. The peace I felt was not loud or triumphant. It was the quiet that comes after you stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided your story for you. Some mornings I still woke expecting the weight of the envelope on the counter. It was no longer there. In its place was the knowledge that I had chosen myself when the cost was real. I lost the marriage I had thought was permanent. I lost the best friend I had trusted with details I shared with almost no one. I lost the easy version of family that had existed, only because I had never asked them to choose between comfort and truth. Those losses were permanent. They did not undo the relief of no longer carrying their expectations or their rewritten versions of my past. What remained was the house I had earned, the work I had built, and the small circle of people who had never required me to shrink to keep them comfortable. That was enough. It had to be. I had spent too many years believing loyalty meant staying small enough for other people's stories to fit around me. I was finished with that equation. Thank you for listening to my story. If this journey resonated with you, if you found any strength or clarity in the choices I made, please hit the like button and subscribe so we can keep having these honest conversations about boundaries and self-respect. Share this with someone who might need the reminder that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Would you choose yourself?